Well, you know it was hiding.
I still need to update my laptop.
Yeah, but you
From still need what? What do you mean?
Still need to update it. It's on February 18th. Still.
Oh, you got a couple of weeks yet. I don't think 20 will be out until January.
Yeah, I know, but I like to. It's currently on the 32-bit because I had a 32-bit DVD lying around.
But maybe you'll be off computer restriction by January.
Oh, sure.
Oh.
What did you do?
Uh-oh.
It's more like what he did to usually.
Welcome to November Omaha Linux Users Group meeting. Yay. Cool, rainy night. Time zone has changed, which means it gets dark much earlier. I am John Larson. I'm the systems engineer at AIM here in the Exchange building. Did anyone get up to see the partial solar eclipse on Sunday?
I didn't even know what was coming.
You may see the pictures.
I have someone who.
There's some pretty cool pictures. Sunrise in New York City was pretty cool.
What time was it?
It was sunrise. As the sun rose, it was already partially eclipsed. Somebody sent me this article yesterday. Utah trucker builds his own telescope. He has a 70-inch mirror, and it's as big as a small school bus.
Is that the posting you did on
Yeah.
Google?
Yeah, it was crazy. The only people I've known who've sold amateur equipment like that was Orion. That was 2 years ago. And they sold a 50-inch, and you could get it for $123,000. Now that's a hobby. But this guy built it himself. He said he went to Lowe's, Home Depot. That's crazy. But that's a different hobby. This hobby we're talking about Linux. So, what has Mark Shuttleworth done recently? How many people did he piss off?
Everybody.
Who hasn't?
Yes. Was not fun, that's for sure.
Mark Shuttleworth, he's the Ubuntu guy, right?
Yes, he's the Ubuntu guy.
What do you do?
I can't remember who the Facebook
He
guy
wrote a
is.
blog. I can't even remember now. It's about a month ago.
People whining about Mir being an unnecessary project because Wayland is going to be superior to it, and how they're the open source Tea Party.
That's right. He called the developers the open source team.
Yes, those who are feel free to criticize are bad people because he's giving you an OS that he now wants to charge for.
Well, I think Mint has been growing faster than Ubuntu anyway recently.
Good. Yeah, that means it'll be better maintained. Since I use it, that's good for me.
So it's Guy Fawkes night usually, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
November. That's correct.
That's about all I know about him, except that he tried to blow somebody up.
He was left guarding explosives, and he got caught. Therefore, the explosives didn't go off, and they said, "Oh, look, we saved King James I," and there's been celebrations since then.
Yes.
That's also the base that's used.
It's a base used in the V for Vendetta and Anonymous.
Yes.
Content.
But keep in mind, every time you get a Guy Fawkes mask, one of the white ones like that, a portion of funds goes to Time Warner, a giant corporation, to help them
Yes.
be profitable.
Alan Moore gets squat
Yeah. Time Warner gets money, so it goes to a giant corporation. So.
to fight your copyright.
That's probably a good reason not to buy one.
Yes.
Papercraft has a very nice one to build.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
It does?
Papercraft.
There's some pretty cool papercraft stuff out there.
There's a killer Starship Enterprise I want to build that looks like.
MakerBot is making a dissolving dissolvable filament that you can use for more complex prints. If you have one of those dual extruder printers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they've had that filament for a while. It's just getting it to work with the dual extruder. They've been working on
I
it.
just like recently found out about it when I was browsing
Thingiverse.
Thingiverse, yeah.
Dora 20 has been delayed yet another week. The fall doesn't surprise me. For the holidays coming up, it'll probably not ship until January. So, not much time to hold on. So I upgraded my Myth box to 19. Just have to do it again. Gives me another year of Myth TV.
27.
Oh, I haven't done that yet.
26.
I'm talking about the base under OS. It's like 26.1 fixes. Okay. I don't know if I've seen 27. In the repo.
I'm still on 5.
I had to do an upgrade of someone's from 19 to 24. No, to 25. And the whole database structure changed. So I had to do incremental updates to get his database up to date. I had to make a sacrificial box, update the database, update Fedora, update Myth, and then update the database again and export it and put it back on the box.
I need to look, but it's going to take a weekend.
And that Myth box that I fixed in the spring is now being sold. So if anyone's on the GN Mug user list, you would have seen that. Or, oh, no, it was on OLED list. I posted it there. Yeah, that's right. So, I believe Craig got it. I think. I have not asked him about that yet.
OMG Code is talking about OpenStack tonight.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
The Omaha Makers Group and the Omaha Dynamic Languages Users Group merged to form OMG Code.
Now they're on the first Tuesdays of December.
Well, no, somehow they just got mixed up. I think Jay messed up and thought it was the second Tuesday or something. Because last month they were on the right day.
Oh, so all this posts that he's been saying on Twitter about the meeting tonight? Oh, okay. Well, I guess it could make sense.
I think
Hey, guys! Maybe they're out there watching. So maybe they'll do the presentation twice. Now, we haven't had Adam do a presentation for a while because Adam's going to class on Tuesday nights. So,
Is this the one that's leaving?
yes. His class is Tuesdays and Thursdays every week. He still has 7 weeks left in class. I still have about 7 weeks left of my class. And that's been fun. It's all online, so it makes it easy. Tonight, Tom Fritz is going to talk about UDP and other OTP methods. Tom, take it away.
Hey, everybody. So, YubiKey. I'll pass this around to take a look at it. They're a one-time password generator. It also works with to do challenge response. Does open off. You can also do static password with it. What it does, every time you press, you don't actually press the button, it's more, yeah, capacity. It has an LED. If you plug it into a USB port, it'll light up. The old ones, I think, had more of a tactile button on it, right? All the new ones are like this. They also make, let me show you a picture. These are some of the other products that they have. The one on the top left is the UV, what's it called? The Neo? No, Nano. No, Neo.
The Nano isn't tiny.
That is a near field. It does near field
Oh.
stuff also. The one on the top right is one that works with Symantec's DIT. So it'll actually work with like PayPal like that. It comes pre-configured for that if you buy one of those. Then they have the Nano, which, as you can tell, if you don't put the little lanyard on there, you'll never get it out of the USB port without a pair of forceps or something.
I would just never find it.
Well, and the big problem with that, and they changed the server, the Ubico server, because people were accidentally leaving those attached to machines and then like walking off, and then they forget about it, lose it, whatever. And somebody would walk up and find it. It's not obvious it's there. The other dongle there, the HSM, that's actually a hardware security node. What's HSM stand for? Yeah, thank you. It actually will store your security keys on it, and you can't access it without special software. The nice thing about it is you can run that and make it much more secure. And I'll kind of.
So it's kind of like for non-connected environments, like it's
No,
not on the
no,
internet.
it's for connected environments. I'll show you. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Kind of out of sync here. Emulates a keyboard with most machines. You don't have to do anything to make it work. It's just a USB keyboard. On the Mac, if you plug it in, I know it does ask you one time to configure it on most Macs. Works with pretty much any portable device. I use it with my pads, my Android tablets, and my phone. It's durable, and I can verify that you can wash it dry. I've done it more than once, and it still works. Matter of fact, the one you're handing around, I've dried it many times.
You say dry cleaned?
No, dried it in the dryer.
Oh.
I washed it and then dried it in the dryer, and it didn't bother at all. So, how can you
withstand
use?
heat, basically.
What's that?
It can withstand heat, basically.
Yeah, they're very durable. I might try to break it intentionally, but I'd kind of rather not. According to YubiKey's site, you can use it for all these things. Don't think I would use it with disk encryption because there's really no good software out there. They kind of have a demo of it.
Kind of proof of concept.
Yeah, but I wouldn't do it. I'll show you how you can use it for logons and stuff, or remote access. Single sign-on. There are a couple places that are using it for this in healthcare environments where they're using it for single sign-on. I can't tell you where exactly. My wife knows because she worked in that list. You can buy a YubiKey pre-configured and set up with LastPass. Anybody use LastPass? Yeah, you can get it pre-configured with that, and you get a 1-year subscription to that for $10 more. If you buy it, you can keep $35 and get a 1-year LastPass subscription. So,
LastPass is ordinarily like 12.
right, right. Anybody know of any internet services that actually support this other than LastPass? I don't, unfortunately.
Fedora kind of uses them. It's not really a service, but the account system uses them.
I looked around, I really couldn't find anybody.
So there's a
Most folks are using RSA keys and things like that.
Fedora account system is a developer thing, or the developers
Yeah.
use that one.
That's how they authenticate the devs when they're checking in.
One way.
One of them.
To use this, what do you need? Anything that works with a USB keyboard. It'd be nice to have a service that actually supports the YubiKey. You can use Yubico's validation servers, but if you have a machine or machines like we do in an environment where you don't really want to depend on somebody else's network, you probably want to go with running your own validation server. There's a few of those. Yubico has their own that's PHP based, and I think their commercial service actually uses that same code or a derivative thereof. There's another one that's a third-party one. It's a Python script, and we found that it's unreliable. It doesn't run for more than about 4 days and will crash. I don't recommend that. the issue that I think that it's having is it tries to keep a persistent connection to the MySQL database, and MySQL is timing it out or something. And as soon as it loses the connection, then the thing kind of
It doesn't have a retry, that's.
Yeah, well, you know, the Python, they have their own little web server
Oh, yeah.
that it runs. And that all runs, and it's odd because you'll look and the Python script won't be running, but it'll still be bound to the port that you set it up on, and it'll answer. But there's no evidence of the script running. So you gotta restart that and restart MySQL to get it to come back. What does the output look like? When you hit one of those things, when you have it in, for the key that I have that I'm going to use for the demo tonight, that is actually the string that it will output. The first 12 characters are fixed, and then everything after that will be it'll change every time based on several things, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. It's 44 characters total. The Radius server, the way they have it set up, can you enter a password first? A fixed password, and then, is that how it works?
Yeah, you use your password, and you.
So it parses it, it basically takes the last 44 characters, and I haven't had a chance to mess with it yet.
Concatenates them together and so
Okay. When you can program these yourself, you can use it the way it comes from Unicode. It comes set up with their servers and ready to go. Or you can reprogram it for your own use. Unicode requires that the first 2 characters be VB, otherwise you can't register it with their system.
That seems kind of late.
Well, there's actually a reason why they use the character set. You notice any characters that are missing in that string? A whole bunch, right?
Numbers.
A.
There's no numbers. There's no A. There's no Z.
Oh. It's the beginning and the end. No M.
This is Y. You're using mod hex encoding to avoid interactions that would be a problem with language settings. So they actually only use these alphanumeric or these alphabet characters because they don't conflict with any other characters. This is directly off their website. I wasn't smart enough to figure this out at first.
Does that include Dvorak?
That was my first thought.
Yeah, I did. What they're taking the
Just the common ones.
what you call it, the least common denominator, well, the most common denominators for whatever character sets are out there. 'Cause some of the German stuff, I mean, it's bizarre.
But the E and the E isn't on the same place as the Dvorak. That's the point.
I don't know that it's actually tied to the characters, the Unicodes. I could be wrong.
Well, the way keyboards work is they send scan codes, so those
Yeah.
scan codes are based on different things.
I don't know. I'll take a look at that. But,
Does it work with the
But is it the hex value or like the positioning of the keyboard that's swapped?
no, when it output, what all it means is that to avoid issues with, if you have your machine set up for a certain locale, like for maybe you live in Germany, you want to use this thing, you may not have those characters available as in the available characters for you. Does that make sense?
No, but what I mean is it the numbers that are assigned to the letters that are different in different regions?
Well, actually, yeah, but what they're saying is that there's some alphabet characters that are just not available in some language sets.
Okay.
Total is 16 bytes long, the entire thing. There's when you program these, you actually program it with a public ID, which is that fixed portion. It's 6 bytes long. And then there's a private ID. It doesn't get actually encoded on the YubiKey itself, but there is an AES encryption string that gets used. The 2-byte session counter is kind of interesting. It is non-volatile. I've heard reports that it actually stops working when you get up around a single byte. Otherwise, it should run up to 65,000 some odd. The servers actually keep track of this value, and if you were to reprogram your YubiKey and then try it on a server without resetting the session counter in the server, it wouldn't work. Because it sees the session counter on your YubiKey, usually starts out at 1, and the session counter on the server will be higher than that, and it automatically detects that. So if you reset your YubiKey, you have to go in and clear the counter for that particular YubiKey in the server. We found that out the hard way. Locked ourselves out. Yeah. It has a 3-byte timestamp that is volatile. It keeps track of how long the device is connected, and after 24 days, it shuts off. So if you accidentally leave your YubiKey connected too long, it just turns off. It's a little over 24 days. What would that be? Then there's a 1-byte session field that just keeps track of how many times you've pushed the button for however long it's been connected for that period. And then it has a 2-byte, pseudo-random field that contains a bunch of garbage that gets transmitted every time you hit the button. It changes. And then a CRC to make sure that it's...
They do kind of support the LoRa. You have to change the scan code mapping on there.
Yeah, that's what I wondered. This is what it looks like. This is off their site. Kind of how it flows. It's encrypted when you hit the button with an AES encryption key, and then it gets converted over to Montex and transmitted. Let me show you. Of course, I got to mirror the display so you can see what I'm seeing. So every time I hit this, it's going to output.
There's an eye in there somewhere.
Yeah, sure. Oh, come on. All right.
Do it.
Stimulate it again. Why am I getting?
There's a word in there.
Well, it's not, I hit an eye, but it's not. What the heck?
Is it because they thinks that's the keyboard?
I don't know. No, I'm in insert mode. So every time you hit it, it actually sends a return, which is, and it's non-configurable. You can't change that. So on a lot of these sites where you can set this up, and for like you're authenticating with a website, it's a pretty straightforward interface to do it. But it has to be, if you have a password, you enter it first, and either have another box for the YubiKey, or what a lot of guys do, so you don't telegraphing that you're using YubiKeys, they just type in your password and hit the button.
That output sort of reminds me of those save codes that old Nintendo games would give you before they figured out how to save it on the cartridge itself.
But as you can see, it's the same all the way up to there on each line.
And that must be doing a hard carriage return.
Yeah. Okay. Now there's tools to personalize these things so you can actually program them for the PC, Mac, and the Linux stuff. The Linux tools, which I was really wanting to show everybody, because they're actually little easier to work with, but I can't. Because using a virtual machine, I can't pass through the keyboard to it because it thinks it's a keyboard. There's no way for me to pass it through with VMware. But I'll show you the Mac personalization stuff. The original YubiKey, does it have 2 slots or 1? It had 1, right?
It just had one.
Yeah. These things have 2 slots, so you can actually program 2 different authentication methods with it. You can do the first slot as a OTP. You can do the second slot as an OTP. You can do a challenge response with it. You can even do a static password. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to do that. It's kind of silly, but it's certainly possible.
So you don't have to have a server to authenticate back to. Because I don't think when the original ones came out, I don't know that they had the toolkit set up for setting up your own server. It was pretty much go to Yubico's.
Yeah, you can only use
Yeah.
their online server only.
Yeah, and some people said, I don't want to be tied to your service. So they came out with the static password things.
Well, it was free, and you get what you pay for. They weren't online all the time. They had issues with them. So if you're really relying on it for anything, it was kind of a problem. I made the mistake. I got mine, I think, so it's been over 2 years ago that I got used to. And I set it up with, there's a third-party free app for the Mac. And I use Macs a lot, and I want to lock it. Well, I locked it. It locked it so well that I had to reinstall.
Wow.
It caused a mess.
It's because the app wasn't supported anymore, or was it the
No,
first attempt?
I've tried the apps a couple other times after that, and they made updates. And I made a backup. I ghosted my drive so that I wouldn't have to worry about, screwing it up. And I ended up having to reinstall for the drive. And I've never gotten it to work. Now, on the other hand, I did get my Mac Pro at home. And yeah, I'm a Mac guy. To work with challenge response. Because the authentication stuff for Mac OS X is PAM. So it works fine. Let me show you the authentication for the personalization tools. So, if I unplug the YubiKey, you'll see it goes away. Plug it in, shows up, it'll tell you what version of firmware you're running. These are not updatable, at least not until 2.3 for the firmware version. I know one of my partners has one, and the little, where it says updatable here, that little X is a checkbox. So I don't know whether that means that you can actually update it, the firmware. I would suspect that would be a security problem if you could actually update. Because if you plugged it into a machine that you didn't know,
You could probably manipulate.
you could have somebody put some malicious software on there and actually do things your YubiKey. I mean, it'd be a possibility. All the different things you can set it up. If you want to program one of these, if you accidentally erase your configuration and you want to reprogram it so it will work with Yubico, you can use it. You can do it here. In the original, you couldn't do that. If you screwed it up, you were done. There was no way to fix it without sending it back to them to reprogram. Then they came out with this to kind of fix that. You can program either slot. You can program slot 2. These are the values that, if you're going to use this with a server of your own, you need to keep track of these 3 pieces of information. The public ID, the private ID, and that's the AES key, or a secret key. You have to keep track of that. The server will require that to be input into a SQL database of some kind, whether it be Postgres or MySQL or SQLite. Their software pretty much supports anything that does SQL. So if you want to program this, it's as simple as, if you don't like the values that are there, you can just hit regenerate and do it as many times as you want. Write the configuration. It's going to ask you to save a configuration log, which actually records the values that you're writing to the key, which is nice. So if you do something stupid, now I'm actually going to overwrite it here, the one that I already
Now,
have.
this isn't a web page, or is this a?
No, this is actually an
It's an app.
application. And the Windows app looks pretty much the same. And I think that there's actually a GUI for the Linux tools that looks real similar, but they're predominantly command line driven.
Okay. And if you change it significantly enough, there's the upload to Yubico.
Yes. Well, anytime you reprogram, you have to do that.
Okay. So your identity change, your public identity is changed. So they kind of treat it as a new unique record.
Well, actually, when you do the upload, you're uploading all three of those pieces to their servers.
Right.
They require all three to authenticate the.
But is there any serial number that they know?
Yes, there is a serial number on it. You can't see it here, but if we go back and we go to the advanced screen, you get everything.
Okay.
Now, you can actually, oh dear. Let me
You don't
see.
have to show it. I can.
No, that's okay. The serial number is right here. In
Oh,
decimal,
all right.
And then in hex. You can, and I don't know why you'd want to do this either, because some of the the dongles actually have a serial number. This one actually has it screen printed on the back of it. If you were to use that for the access code, which locks it, you can pick it up and read it and then unlock it. You can lock these, though. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, unless you just wanted to keep an employee from mucking with it and inadvertently erasing that slot. Now this, you can actually change the length of your public identity. So if you customize the server to work with more than the normal 6 bytes, you can do that. I don't know why you want to do that, but you can. Also, if I hit the generate button here, you're going to see that it doesn't use the CC or VB or any of that. It changes it to something that is not compatible with Yubico. So to actually use it with Yubico, you have to use the simple or the basic setup.
I see.
I use it with this because if somebody loses their YubiKey or they break it or something like that, we can actually reprogram it with their original.
You can put the old values back in on
Yeah.
the new one. I
Yeah,
see.
you can reprogram it, but with the caveat that you have to go into the server and reset the session counter, because if you don't, it won't work with it.
It won't match up.
Yeah. Yeah. You can also do open off with it. Nobody supports it. The open off stuff is like the what they use for PayPal and Google or eBay. One of these cards, you punch the button, it throws you out a 6-digit PIN for 2-factor authentication.
Mine's not that nice.
Well, I had to buy this. I didn't get it free.
Well, I bought one too, but they gave me like the little RSA-like dongle with the push button.
Yeah, they stopped doing that. They also had the football for a while. They
Yeah.
stopped doing that.
So they've gone to a card base?
Yeah, they've gone to that. It's
Well,
just
still
it's
works.
exactly the same though.
Yeah, my old one still works, but I mean,
Yeah.
wow.
The reason why I went to that was
Fits in your
because
wallet.
Android, if you go out on their site, you can actually get a VIP app. Have you seen that? It does the same thing.
Well, it's similar to the 2-factor app
It's-
that
it's
Google
a-
has.
Yes, but it's called VIP, Symantec VIP,
Okay.
right? Worked great, except 24 hours after you install it and configure it, it will screw up and you'll have to reconfigure it. It's a bug that they know about, and apparently, well, it caused me undue stress when I was trying to get in and check the eBay auction that I had going on. Couldn't get it.
So that's on Android, you know?
What's that?
What kind of phone?
Yeah, it's an Android.
Okay.
And I think the iPhone version also did have the same bug with that VIP application.
Sounds
I
like
just
a,
upgraded my phone and I forgot to put VIP on this one.
I had problems with it. Maybe it's fixed now, but I got frustrated enough. I spent $30 on the card or whatever it was. So you can also do static passwords, which is just silly. I don't know why you'd want to do that. Because you can enter any length. I mean, you can and it'll do the scan code for it, and that's what it sends.
it might help like the wife acceptance factor if you're,
I suppose. I don't know. I don't know.
or
why
if you're
you'd
having
use that.
a common terminal that you don't want to give anybody passwords out to.
Yeah, that's true. The challenge response stuff works great. I really like it. You can use it with the and using the Ubico OTP stuff, which is slightly different than the other. But I haven't configured this on anything but my Mac at home, but it's really easy to set up. Basically, you can configure it so that when you plug it in, it automatically, well, you can see here, automatically.
Oh, so you can just keep going and programming.
Where's that? Yeah, this does automatic. I'm looking for something else though here.
Increment identities and randomize.
Yeah, I'm not
security.
seeing what I'm looking for. Let me go back. Maybe it's under the other. Oh, here.
Require user input.
Yeah, if you use it, the Linux version uses HMAC, and it's kind of cool because you plug it in and it does the challenge response right away.
Oh, so it's like, go.
Right.
Okay.
So, and it's kind of nice. You can't use this over a terminal though, because you have to be local to the machine. It only works on the console. So if you had a data center, it might be useful to lock the console. I really don't like doing that because, I'm paranoid that the PAN module will lose its mind and you won't be able to get in the box without power cycling or something.
So can you have one UV key like share between people that work in the server room and then?
You could.
And then they'd have their own UV key?
Yeah.
Just basically to lock.
Oh, yeah.
Double
definitely.
lock, you mean?
Well, I'll show you that in a
Tier
second.
two
Yeah,
keys.
I'll get to that. There's some very interesting things you can do with PAM, and you can really mess yourself up if you're not careful. All right, some examples. I mean, you can use it for SSH. We use it where I work primarily because, I mean, we're not huge, but we have 70 plus VMs running out there, and you get to the point where you realize that, using even a handful of passwords on a lot of machines is a bad idea. So, and it becomes really difficult. I don't like writing passwords down. I don't like using password managers and things like that. So we determined that it makes more sense to have a common password that we don't have to change very frequently and then use the UV key. Because it takes care of the issue. As long as nobody gets a hold of your UV key and they don't know the password, you're fine. It also works with console logins, which kind of fixes your issue if you're in a data center and you're worried about physical security. It'll work with anything, in other words, that uses a PAM module. Pretty easy to set up. I have a couple of examples of that. Sorry, I got to keep bouncing around here. Unfortunately, the mirroring doesn't work very good. All right. So I've got a server set up that's actually local to this machine. And let's get that. What I did here. Okay, so this is set up for UVT. This is what you'd see if you log in. You guys see that? Sorry. You can't see it?
You move it up a bit?
Yeah, I'll just. Better?
Yes.
It will prompt you for that. To me, that's a giveaway. So I recompiled the PAM library, or the PAM module to not say UBKey. It actually just gives you a $ prompt. And I didn't tell anybody that I did it.
Ooh.
And I got a phone call about 11 o'clock about 2 weeks ago after I'd done that. And Mike was like, I don't know what's wrong with this machine. I can't get in. It keeps giving me a prompt, but as soon as I hit a key, it logs me out. He thought it was actually giving me a Unix prompt. So if you hit button, you're in. Now I'm logging in as root. I know, bad, but I'm going to make some changes here. I set this up, and I'll show you where the actual, I'm not going to go through in depth on this because there's way too much to go through on how to configure it. But that's interesting. Why did it ask me for the UV key?
Commented out. Is it set up in normal PAM?
You're not SSH'd.
No, this is a terminal.
But you're editing the SSH key.
That looks
I
like
SSH to it.
they have comments and
This is not the
coding.
This is not the actual.
Oh, all right.
See. Yeah, very interesting. Maybe I messed up and put it someplace else. What they tell you to do is put it in the common auth, and that's just silly. So I don't see it there. We'll figure that out. I have several others set up there, as you can see. If we have time, I'll do the OTP is another two-factor authentication, and I also have it set up to do Google, the Google auth with their PAM module, which is, by the way, this is Ubuntu 12.04. Not available before this, unfortunately. You can get the source and compile it yourself if you want to. But you can also, if you do it in the SU, same thing applies. You can have a UV auth there. If you take out the common auth line, what will end up happening is it will not prompt you for your user password. So it'll just automatically do, one-factor authentication with the UV key dongle. So you don't actually, it doesn't ask you for your password, which is another silly thing for us. It also works for the console by, I don't think it's configured on this, but anywhere where you have the common auth line, if you put the UV key line underneath there, it'll log you in using two-factor authentication. Now what that's calling is this file that I made myself. And this has the piece that you need to actually log in. I'm running against my own internal server. If you're using UVCos, you would actually apply for an API key, which is this piece right here of your own. And I believe if you do that, they also give you an ID that you have to give it. And that can run anywhere from, I want to say it's a 2-byte value, so 65,000. I don't know if they recycle those, if they're not used over a period of time, if they don't see activity. I don't know. And then you tell it the auth file that you want to use. What that is, it's a file that pairs up the username with the public ID of your UV key. We do it in a common spot like this, so everybody gets put in there. You can do it so that it's actually in the user's account. Either way works. The only bad thing is if you have a system where you encrypt your home directory, you can't do that because you won't be able to read it to log you in. And then you have this nifty little URL that points to the actual server and passes the key, well, the ID, and for some reason, I don't know why it asks you for the key here, but it actually doesn't have it on the command line to pass, but it does. It actually does pass that value. And I don't know how it gets passed, because without it being actually, put in here, I don't know how that works. If you erase the 2.0 portion of that, which you can do, all of the servers that are out there are backwardly compatible with version 1. You don't have to put the ID tag. The only thing you have to pass is the OTP and it'll work.
Can you explain the syntax there? It's more like a printf statement, C, percent D.
Yeah.
I would think it'd be like a $sign ID,
Yeah, it's passing. I really don't. Honestly, I don't know. It's passing.
Digit and %S string.
Yeah.
Usually.
Right. Well, what it's doing there is it's passing, and I'm thinking that it must be passing the key and the ID from that percent D. I didn't look into it very hard. You can replace all this with a string that will work with a Unicode server pretty easily. They do round robin DNS on all their boxes. And they've got actually they may be doing GeoIP stuff in addition to that because they have servers on like 6 locations. And it's a 2-piece authentication the way it's set up. There's a validation server that actually takes this portion of it. And then there's, the way I'm running it, there's, they call it KSM, the key server management piece. It then passes the actual one-time password off to the KSM, and it decrypts it. And it says, hey, it's good, it's not good. The validation server actually keeps track of session IDs. It keeps track of whether it's a replay, because if you do it twice, it's a replay, and it won't work. And I can show you that too, possibly here. I can remember how to actually talk to the web server. Because this is actually just, as you can see, HTTP. It's just running on port 80. You can change the port number. This is supposed to work, and George, the version, you were running Ubicodes, right?
No, internal, just you download every.
No, I mean the Radius version, you were running their VM image, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you mess with this at all? Well, you're supposed to be able to do SSL with this.
I'm about to ask about that.
Yeah. And you just change the HTTP to HTTPS. You don't have to change the port number if you run on 443. And my experience has been this. It passes it correctly, but the value passed back, it doesn't know how to talk SSL coming back. So if you put it in debug mode, it says, I got something, but I didn't understand it. There's a command or a parameter you can pass called CA path equals, and it's the path to the certificate authority. And in this case, it would be like Etsy SSL certs is what it's supposed to be. Still doesn't work. Somebody reported, and I spent about a week trying to figure this out. Somebody reported an error with the libpam Ubico module that it would not work with the GNU TLS stuff under Ubuntu. It was broken because the version of the source that they were running is like 2.11, no 2.6 is what it is right now, and it doesn't work right. Well, they came up with a patch, so I said, yay, I'll go out and do it myself. So I went out, got all the libraries and everything, compiled everything from scratch. No joy. Still the same thing. Can't figure out why.
Is it a SQL database? NSSDB?
No.
The Etsy certs can be in a plain text file format or MySQL, SQLite format.
Etsy SSL certs on Ubuntu is just a directory with all of the certs that are allowed from all the upper level. And it's got the snake oil, CA, that's the standard one, and it's just a PIM file. And it should read that, and that it should work. And under Fedora, a gentleman that found the bug and that posted the patch, he got it working using just by recompiling the libraries, the YK client stuff. Can't get it to work. So,
You recompiled the Unicode?
yeah, the PAM module. It's dependent upon something called, it's a YK client is what it is, Unicode client, which is another command line tool that you can use to query the server. And that was the thing that had the issue, apparently. They're using the GNU TLS stuff because the SSL has problems with OpenSSL. And I wasn't about to try to do it with the OpenSSL stuff. What I'm going to try to do is maybe, install CentOS or something and give it a shot with that and see if it works. But I'm kind of like a bulldog. I don't like running into problems like this, and I end up stuck on it for weeks. The big issue is, of course, that you're passing things, and you can actually see the OTP portion over the network in the clear. We do everything over IPsec anyhow, so it's not really that big a deal, but I kind of wanted to avoid having to set up IPsec tunnels between all the machines that we do this with for that reason. Because, every now and then, we use Strong Swan and it'll die. And there are facilities in there to make sure that it's using IPsec in IP tables, or it won't send the traffic at all. But that's also a hassle. So you get cut off and you can't get in the box. Let me see, what else I can show you. Let's go back to our... Okay, so some of the other ways you can use it, obviously, there's static passwords, the challenge response stuff, and OpenAuth. Does anybody use OpenAuth? You guys used it at all? It actually is pretty cool. That RS, or that VeriSign card, that's basically what that is. I mean, 6 to 8 digits, doesn't work too bad. Does anybody have any questions about that? I'd show you, do you guys want to see how the server stuff is set up, or do you care?
Get your card back.
He's gonna get it back.
Yeah. I mean, I can show you the pieces. As far as I know, I don't think CentOS or Fedora have packages for it.
For what, the server?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do they?
Fedora does.
Okay. Fortunately for me, because I use Debian and Ubuntu mostly, they have a PPA, and it's actually Unicode, so it's up to date. Pretty easy to install. The only thing you have to do, there's a importer user that you can do. There's a tool to actually generate keys, like in mass. So you can generate as many as you want, and they're done randomly. And then you can import that directly into the database. And actually, they use GPG for it. So when you create them, they're actually encrypted with the GPG key, so you never have the file out in the open. And the tool that actually imports it has a separate user for it. And for some reason, they don't create that when they install the software. So you have to know what the name of that user should be. Fortunately, if you go and look at their the online tutorial on their wiki, it will walk you through that properly. Otherwise, you'll be lost. You won't be able to figure out why it won't import your keys.
And after you import the keys, then you turn around and take the individual units and then assign
Yeah, you can assign usernames to it.
program usernames to those pre-imported keys.
Yeah, that's what I didn't show you. The file that actually associates that with the user. If you look, and you can create this file anywhere. Like I said, if you want to do it centralized. Otherwise, it does it. You can do it in the users directory, and it's hard coded in the PAM module to do that. But what it looks like is this. Whoops. It's just a file that has whatever usernames you want to associate with that key and allow them to log in with it. This also means that I could have multiple keys. stick a colon in there, and you can have as many keys as you want associated with that particular user. You can use the same key with multiple users. So, I mean, we don't typically put user accounts on our boxes. We have some sort of admin account, and then root, and then maybe a couple others. But that's the other thing. If you use this with SU do, you can actually restrict what they can access to directly, which is kind of nice. And also by the UV key itself, because you can have multiple UV keys for users and things like that. So if you have somebody who's a knock monkey, they don't necessarily have to have access to your off boxes.
A knock monkey?
Somebody who works, never mind. If you have somebody working for you that shouldn't have access to privileged information, you can give them a UV key that's only lets them get into certain machines. The other nice thing about not using the PHP or the Python script for the server is that that particular thing does not log anything. It doesn't log any off attempts. You get the typical var log off stuff, but it actually doesn't output the
YubiKey has been authenticated.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, it gives you a PAM authentication line, but it doesn't actually have the one-time password associated with it. This does. The Val server, the way they recommend you run this Yubico, they say you should run your validation server, and you can run pools of those. They're not, obviously this will not work with a pool because it's hard-coded unless you do round-robin DNS or something like that. It's not going to work with multiple servers. You can do pooling of your validation servers, and what will happen is it'll just talk to the first one that answers is the one that services the request. Then on the backside, you have KSM servers or HSM servers where they use the hardware dongle. That's where that comes into. It eliminates the need to have a SQL database of all the keys because they get stored on that dongle and you can't access them trivially. It makes it much more secure. They say it's virtually foolproof. I doubt it.
I'm sure there's a cool Boolean.
Oh yeah, there's always
pulled up.
Don't you know what they say about software engineering? It's a race to make bigger and better foolproof systems.
Exactly.
Make it bigger and better.
Your validation servers can actually fire against multiple back-end KSM servers, and they do it simultaneously. So whichever one comes back with the answer first is the one that gets the prize, I guess. So that being the case, there's also a synchronization protocol that runs across the web interface that will sync your validation servers, those session counters. Because if you don't sync the session counters on all your servers and you go off to the next one, it may not let you in because your session counter will be outside the bounds of what it. There's a high and a low session counter, and if it's outside of that range, it won't let you in because it's assuming that your key's been tampered with. It's pretty easy to. We're using this. We require you to log in with it, and then if you SU, you have to use it. So for every machine that I touch, I have to hit the thing twice. Well, in a day's time, that adds up pretty quick. So it's pretty easy to get outside of that criteria really rapidly, and we did that with that Python server that we were running. Questions?
How much does a YubiKey cost?
$25.
Do I buy a lot?
In quantities of one. If you buy 50 at a time, you can get it down to $15 a key. There are a couple services out there that will silk screen them for you too, if you want to get something done on them. They come in red and white. Or I'm sorry, white and black. Those nanos, I'm not thrilled And they don't come, you can't buy those in quantity as far as I know. They don't have, at least they don't advertise it. I know that these are really durable. The little lanyard thing that I have on here is actually Kevlar.
What?
I haven't, well, I was breaking all the other ones. I kept breaking it off, and I find the YubiKey in my pocket. That's how it ended up in the washing machine system.
Did you order that off of Amazon?
Yeah. Yeah, I got like 30 of them for like $5 or something like that. So, I haven't broke one yet.
You should use Kevlar on the Wii straps.
Yeah, well.
Not a bad idea.
It
wouldn't break their TVs quite so much.
I can show you the server stuff if you care. It's kind of, it'd probably be best left to another talk because it's pretty involved. It's pretty straightforward though. I mean, if you read the how-tos on UniCo site, if you can find them, I have a few links. They're kind of hard to find sometimes. It's not hard. Otherwise, I set up a demo for a couple other OTP type protocols if you guys are interested.
Sure.
These are some of the other ones that are real common. OTPW, it prints, the bad thing about it is it requires you to have a list of passwords that you have to carry around, or a file. Their site actually recommends that you get waterproof paper and print it on waterproof paper so that it can run. Again, this is just, I can't see doing this. It's not a bad system, I guess.
With the ink?
Yeah, so if you put it in your pocket or put it in your billfold and you sweat, it doesn't run.
There's a thing in Sweden where they're doing it with you know how you got those scratch tickets?
Yeah.
With that stuff, they still screen it on top of the one-time password. That way. So at least you know someone's been monitoring
Yeah.
your card.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Google Authenticator is another one. It works really well, but requires network connection. There's no way to run your own server. OPI is a really old one. It's based off S-key. OPI, what can I say about OPI? OPI means that you have to have a machine that is running OPI to get into another machine that is using OPI. So to generate the PIN code, S-key is kind of the same way. I can demo the OTP and the Google thing pretty easy.
OP uses MD5.
Yeah.
Wouldn't trust it.
No. No, I wouldn't either.
Back in the day.
Anything that you can use with PAM, OTP will work with. When you generate your little sheet of passcodes or passwords, you actually give it a prefix password first. This can be set up so that you don't require a user password, which is kind of cool, because you can make the prefix password a user password, and then it'll ask you for a line number off your sheet of passwords to enter. It's great if you have it in a file and you're cut and pasting, but if you actually have to type it in off a sheet of paper, it's a pain. Requires you to carry a list somehow, whether it be on a USB stick, whatever. You have to have access to that list of passwords. They get used once. I think by default it prints out 256 of them.
One of those Casio data bank boxes.
Yeah. As far as I know, most of the distros have packages for it.
Sounds a bit like overcomplicated.
No, actually, it's pretty straightforward.
As long as you don't lose the paper you print all those lines on.
Yeah, exactly.
But then if that goes through the washing machine, toast.
Yeah.
I just think it's not.
I'm going to.
It's not what?
Kevlar paper.
Oh, that's why it asked me for it. I
That
SU.
went over my head.
That's why it asked me for it. Because it's set up
Yeah.
for SU.
Yeah, no,
All right. So if you want to do OTP W, you just do OTP W-gen and ask you for your prefix password, whatever you want to do. So we'll do pass. And then it prints out a nice long
Remember.
list
Whoa.
of passwords. Oh, sorry, 280 password pairs.
And, I mean, the
Somebody
question,
had a
but is
bad
that,
day.
you put a space
Yes,
between those?
it requires a space, it requires a space to be there, as far as I know.
That
Um,
It just probably is
Big wall
almost like a
effect
delimiter.
there. Yeah.
It's a 20.
Yeah. So if you log in, here's what's going to ask you. We'll fire this up so you can get out of here. Sorry, wrong button.
You never got into that machine again.
Yeah, well, hey, funny, that's happened before.
That's why it's funny.
Uh,
To you, it's funny.
Well, it could be funny. All right, so let me get in here.
Better hope that HTTP package is exploitable.
I'll turn it on one of the,
CI?
whoops. What's that?
Are you trying to VI or CI?
Oh, crap. Thanks.
C.
All right, so I have it set up here. Again, this is another one where you can actually disable the common offline, and it will only do the OTPW, sorry. So I'll uncomment that. Pop over here. Yep. And what's my password? So I enter that, and then it says password. Then it gives you a
34.
line number.
Oh, okay.
So you
It's
gotta
not like
enter
a list
your-
you cross off. It's going to give you one out of that.
Well, it keeps track of them, which
Yeah.
is nice. Now, you have to enter your password, no space, and then you enter that line number that it's asking for from the list. Great. Now, when this messes up, you will not understand why it's not working, because this is what it does. It lets you in, because it's set by default for sufficient, not
Okay.
required. You guys know PAM,
Yeah.
the syntax? Okay, so can somebody explain to me what requisite means?
It has to have a value.
Okay, but there's also required.
Oh.
Anybody know? I don't either. Couldn't figure it out. But there's two different values. You can do required or requisite, which is nice. And yeah. So if we look in my nifty little file here, it's set as sufficient. Change that, and then do it again. Ah, did it again. This time, you enter your password correct. By the way, if you enter your password incorrectly, it doesn't give you this line.
But they asked you for password 34 again, so it doesn't mark them off if they're wrong.
It doesn't mark them off as long as they aren't used.
Ah.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, if you don't enter it right, though, it goes back to password. So you have to enter your password again. Now, if you're dumb, you enter your password right, and then do this, and you go again, and then you do it again, eventually what's going to happen is you're going to exceed the number of allowed logins, and that's what just happened. And now the sinister things happen. If you've entered it wrong more than 3 times, oh, you little beastie. It's actually supposed to, well, what happens is, to protect against man-in-the-middle attacks and things like that, if somebody records what you're doing, like a keylogger, and they try to replay it, it detects that. And now it's going to ask for not just one line, it's going to ask for 3.
So it's 34, 35, 36.
Well, no, they're random.
They're random?
They're not in order. It starts with 0, 1, or 0, 0, 1. And it asks for all these things all, and it's a pain in the neck. Because then you got to, figure it out. And what happens when you run out of passcodes? And you don't have access to the machine, you can't generate another list. It's kind of a problem. Found that out the hard way too. Today, when I was setting this up, I had misspelled the PAM module
Oh.
in the
And
the
it-
file. Well, it would just sit there and do this over and over again. No, that wasn't what it was. I actually had the root login turned off in SSH. So you can't log in as root. Well, I didn't realize that. And it just lets you barely sit there and enter passwords over and over again. Finally it timed out. And I was entering the right OTPW password and the right password, but it just wouldn't let me in. And then all of a sudden spit out the line requiring 3. Well, so then I'm, cutting and pasting, still not working. Figured it out though. This doesn't work too bad.
That's finite.
Yeah. And
So at some point you can just go in and then
yeah, you can rerun that OTP-gen command,
Right.
and it'll output another list. And actually, you can give it some command line variables that tell it to
have
spit
a
out
list to print out.
a metric buttload of numbers and never have to do it again.
I carry my notebook with me.
Yeah, it's just a pain, And if I was to do this, I would carry it around. I would put it on my USB dongle in a TrueCrypt volume. But how convenient is that? And what if you're at a data center where you don't actually have access to the machine to get the passwords off? It's just, that's happened a couple times.
It's like a restriction where you can't take a machine in?
No, I stupidly packed my machine in with my carry-on, and it got checked because the plane was too full.
Oh.
And then they lost my bag for a day. So I didn't have any of my stuff with me. So I they had one machine that we were kind of trialing with this, and I didn't get to it. Not a big deal. The other interesting.
Have you ever been on WikiD at all?
Elaborate.
It's the two-factor authentication system.
I didn't. I honestly, I'm not an expert in this, and I didn't go in depth to look at more
Yeah,
than
no.
just kind of the standards.
No problem, I'm just kind of curious. It seems we're getting some traction. It's kind of curious who has had experience with
I gotcha. The other one that is kind of interesting is the Google Authenticator. Actually works pretty slick. It's an app on your Android phone that.
Well, that's one method.
Hmm?
You can have it text you the code too.
Yeah, but this
App
is
is
this
nice.
is just like that. This functions the same way. It's a time-sensitive code that regenerates every 30 seconds. And,
How come you have 3?
I have one for, well, different machines have different.
Got one for Dropbox, one for different,
Yeah.
different Google accounts.
And I'll show you how to set it
Oh,
up.
because you've got more than one account, okay, tied into that system.
Well, every machine has to have its own, and I'll show you why. This is actually kind of cool.
I'm just getting one, so.
Again, didn't
So we 3 times better than you.
I guess so.
I? Okay. I must have closed my other window. Oh, there it is. All right. So, if you want to generate a
Got it on my iPhone.
a Google Authenticator for this account, oh, you guys can't see. Sorry. All right. Once you install the software, it's a package on this. You type Google Authenticator, hit the button, and lo and behold, it spits out a QR code
Someone like Steve has. In the console.
on the console that you don't want to do that to. But to import it, I just take a picture of it with my, yeah, that's all right.
Run!
So I just set it up on this phone with that particular account. You notice it does give you a list of 5 emergency codes though, so that's kind of nice at the bottom there. You
Yeah.
want to save those. If you actually use this with anything, it's going to ask you where you want to put it. By default, it puts it in your home directory. The nice thing about this is that
Can I ask you a question? Is it
Yeah.
okay if I'm recording this?
Sure.
Alright.
Yeah, this is all scratch. This all gets blown away.
He's not actually using these passwords.
No. This is one of the only ones that is
Says
not,
how.
if this file, this .google authenticator file is not in your home directory, it will not use this to authenticate you. It's the only one of these one-time password things. Well, OTPW also does that, but it's kind of nice, so it doesn't have to work with every account, which means the users can do it or they cannot do it if they decide. The thing that's outside of their control is whether or not they have to enter their password, because that's hard-coded in the PAM files. You say yes. Oops, sorry, I didn't say yes. How fast it regenerates them. I typically say no to this without saying no. And I always say no to this because it's got me into trouble. You get a machine that, if the machine's time is off that much,
Oh, a little bit of
you
drift.
probably should fix it anyhow.
Just out of
Every
curiosity,
10 minutes is a good way to know.
Yeah.
does Google Authenticator say work like X login or something with like XDM?
If it doesn't support
Yeah.
PAM, it'll work.
Okay.
Yep. Anything that supports PAM, because it's basically it's a PAM module. So,
I just wonder how XDM does that.
I have never, I haven't used a Linux desktop machine since most of this came out. It's been a long time. The only reason I use a Mac is because I don't have to mess with it. I learned a long time ago that I don't have the patience to constantly mess around with the desktop machine. I just need a terminal and a browser. So, preferably one that actually works.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I got bit in the ass when I had a machine that had 4 screens on it. I updated, and then X Windows, they got messed up, and then I only had 1 monitor, and they're all mirrored. You know, and you spend 3 days trying to figure it out.
I mean, it's not flawless like the mirroring tonight traffic.
Yeah.
Actually, we could have done AirPlay to the Apple TV.
Yeah, that's all right. So, that doesn't work too bad. I've got some links, and actually, John, if you want, I can give you this as an HTML file and put it up somewhere. This whole
Okay,
slide
sure.
presentation is fine. There's some of the links that you can look at. It's by no means a exhaustive list. That second link to Yubico is kind of interesting. Talked about, use the challenge response. Pretty easy to set up, or at least relatively easy. Now, one thing you can do that really is fun is you can use multiple PAN modules and stack them. So you can require more than one YubiKey, different slots, because you can specify different configuration files for it.
What kind of
You're a
tinfoil
bad
battery
man.
would require that?
Well, yeah, there is that.
Distinguished from the bandolero.
Oh, Les,
Huh?
I may have missed this, but how do you tell which slot?
Oh, that's one thing I didn't talk about. It's how long you hold your finger on the button.
Oh, so.
It requires it at
It's like
least
Morse
at-
code, dot or dash.
Well, if you hit it once, okay. If there's only one slot configured, if the other slot is empty, and you hold it down for more than 2 seconds, it just spits it out.
Okay.
But it'll only play it once. You have to let off before it'll do it again. It's not like a keyboard where it has a repeat rate of any kind. If it has both slots configured, you have to hold it for at least 2 seconds for the second slot to fire.
And it's not like you lift your thumb off and you get the carriage turn. You just hold it and it'll just fire it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, that's not true. If the first slot is configured and the second slot's not configured, you touch it and it fires, or you touch it and hold it and it fires. But if both slots are configured, you touch it, let go, and it fires. You touch it, hold it, and let go, then it fires. If you just keep holding it, it won't spit
Okay.
anything out.
All right.
Yeah. Which is another huge time sink. If you, the majority of machines are actually configured for second slot authentication. I don't know about you, but 2 seconds adds up over a period of the day. If you're pushing it, forever, it seems like it takes forever for it to happen.
You have to be, like we're snowed to be that paranoid.
Well, no, I mean,
Well, yeah,
I mean, it'd probably be good if you had, you're the manager, but you don't want to give a single employee keys to the kingdom. You might divide it up between 2 employees.
Well, the way, I tried to talk one of my partners into doing multiple PAM module authentication. Because I was thinking about getting rid of passwords altogether. And if you're still doing 2-factor authentication, but you're doing, something with your Android
There's your
phone,
2-factor.
a PIN code, and then the YubiKey. I can't see doing 2 YubiKeys because that would just be insane. I can't see the point of that.
You wouldn't have to make that noise every time, though.
I do know that you can duplicate a YubiKey, but that doesn't mean it'll work. So if somebody actually does compromise your database and gets the stuff out of the SQL database that is in there, which are those 3 pieces, the public, private, and the AES key, if they have those, they can make your key. They can remake it.
But there's the counter.
But there's the counter.
But that's the thing I wanted to ask.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Why do they need my private key? I mean, why do I, private keys are for most every case, in SSL, and SSH, PGP,
It has to be able to decrypt it.
but that's what the public keys.
But it's just
But you're generating both. If they generated one, they could give you what you need. But if you're generating both with your app, you have to tell them what the other half is.
It has to use that to decrypt because you're sending your public. It's not the same as 2-factor or public private.
private.
No, it's not. It doesn't work that way.
So it's
they
just
do-
symmetric.
Yeah.
So it is just.
It requires that private ID plus the AES key to decrypt the keys that's sent to it because it's encrypted with an AES key when you push the button to it. Otherwise, it can't decrypt it and then authenticate it or verify it. Now, the thing that tripped me up when we were doing the Python script is that it did both functions. It validated it and then decrypted it or verified it. Now we're using the BAL server and the KSM server, and if you actually talk to the KSM server directly on the web port, you can send an OTP, and it'll say, okay, it's either good or bad. It's either in the database or it's not, and it's either complete or it's not. But if you replay that, if you just hit the on your browser, refresh over and over, it'll just keep working. That tripped me up at first because all it's doing is decrypting it. It's not actually checking for replay attacks. The validation server actually does that. So, and the whole point of having the session counter is that it has a low water and a high water mark that takes into account the fact that the server might not have synced to the other servers that you might be authenticating against. So it gives you a window that you're good for. The thing that we're worried about is that with your YubiKey, at some point you're going to have to reprogram it after so many thousand, or well, hopefully 60-odd thousand key presses. That non-volatile memory will become full, and once it gets to the end, it sticks. Well,
Just the last fact.
the database keeps counting. So as soon as it counts past where your session counter is on your key, the next time you hit it, it's going to refuse you because it's below the low water mark, and it won't let you in. So you have to reprogram your YubiKey and then reset the session counters in the database. Otherwise, it won't.
Oh, you just have to plug it back in, go to the app.
Yeah, and you can put the
You're
same
essentially
values
starting-
in.
Okay.
Or probably what makes more sense is you go ahead and reprogram with new values. That's inconvenient because there is that Etsy file that you have to edit and put your public ID in for every machine you want to touch. So the way we're doing it is we're going to reprogram the keys and reset session counters in the database. Another thing, because the PAM module doesn't have failover abilities, what we consider doing is something kind of a little bit screwy, and that is because you can stack the PAM modules, you can have it fall through them. If you tell it it's sufficient, it'll fall through until you get to the last one and have it be required. That means you're going to be sitting there hitting your UV key until one of them actually works. The other way you can do it is you can set up some sort of shell script to check to see if it's responding, because you can use curl or wget and check for a response. If you fire against the val server and you give it a valid YubiKey string, the first time it happens, it'll say okay, the status, it'll give you an okay because it's never been done before. If you do it again, it'll say a replay error. But that means the server's working. So you can take that value as it's working. But if you get bad OTP, that probably means that the KSM server on the back end stopped working, because that's what, so you can kind of, you could write a script to actually change the PAM, that file in etc PAM, the PAM.me, the auth dash, what I had, auth dash YubiKey, you could actually feed it a different server and have it do failover that way. That's a poor man's way of doing it, and the granularity would be down to a minute with the prompt. But
The session counter prevents you from like making a backup key, having two of the same key.
yeah, and, well, unless you don't use the session counter, there is a way to do that. You can disable it, but the reason why YubiKey put it into play was because of the danger of somebody, even if they get your information and program a key with your information, if the session counters have gone past, you know, and there's no way to program the session counter when you program the key.
It just
from the
initialized
software.
when you set it up.
Yeah. And actually, I think it initializes it with kind of a random value, anywhere from somewhere between 1 and like 2K.
So your first validation is sort of saying, here's my session start, and then it goes from there.
Right, and the server, when you set up a key in there, when you import it, if you do it with the tools that they give you, it sets the session counter to 1. Now, you can do it manually, go in into the SQL database and put this stuff in there manually.
So when you reset your SQL database, you want to be sitting there with your key, so you it
Yes.
learns what
Well, if you
random
reset the SQL
session-
database though to 1,
The next value.
well, the only thing is it has bounding.
Right, so it's got
Yeah.
a high and low watermarks.
Right. But it sets them both to 1, I think, by default. And if you did that, it wouldn't matter what your YubiKey was at. It would work the first time, guaranteed. But if your YubiKey, if the session counter has gone, filled, yeah, well, not expired, but if it's at the max, the second time you pushed it, it wouldn't work.
And you said it's 2 byte values. You said sometimes when a byte is full, so you're saying at 256
Well,
it starts
there was a
breaking.
report that somebody said that it stopped at 32K.
Oh,
At half what it should be. Now, I wasn't able to confirm that. And I do know that, like I said, when you first program the key, it puts a random value in the session counter. That was our experience, because when I did mine, after we figured out why I couldn't get in, after I reprogrammed it, we figured out that that's what it was.
So it might be like he's expecting an unsigned integer, but it's.
Well, it
actually
was
signed.
expecting a value higher than what was in the session counter in the server, and it reset it to a lower value. But when we looked at it, when I pushed the button and it sent it, the next time we actually looked in the SQL database, it went up to 250. So we know it started somewhere below 250 but above 1. And I'd only hit it twice at that point. So it had to have started somewhere in between. The reason why we ran into a problem was because I reset it, my YubiKey, tried it on one machine which was running a different validation server, and they aren't synced. And so the session counter was okay with that. Apparently when it initialized it, the session counter in the database was lower and it worked. So I thought it was good. I killed that machine because it was just my dev box, and I went to log on to the production boxes and it wouldn't let me in because I had logged in so many times the session counter on in the database was way higher. And I didn't put two and two together because there was a span of time that elapsed in between that, and I didn't think about that. So it took a little while for us to figure out what happened. If I would have been running the validation server from Yubico, it would have been in the log file for me. But because I was running that Python script, I had no feedback. So I didn't know what happened.
So if you're just starting out, this might be best not to use your own server at some.
Yeah, as long as you're okay with that. We've run into problems where, we might have a network outage. What if you can't get to their servers? So we were out in.
You're at data center.
Yeah, we were at a data center.
One of Yubico servers.
Yes,
We were like you're at home on Cox Cable or something.
No, we were at a data center that they had a explosion in the wiring out in LA at One Wilshire about, what was that, 3-4 years ago? And they had the fire, and it cut the whole building off. We had nothing. Well, there were a couple providers that were, they had Landsat. But, so we were offline for 7 days. So, but it happens, and if that's the case, then you can, I wrote a script that basically that's what it does. It goes through and it says, okay, is the validation server working? If it's not, fail over to this one. Is that one working? Well, if that one's not, then maybe we'll check a third one. If that one's not working, then it just shuts off the Yubico stuff on everything. Well, it shuts it off on the console port because I have KVM access or IPMI access or serial access, and that works. But this stuff, it works great if you, if you need to secure a lot of machines. It's much better to do it this way than it is to try to remember all the damn passwords. I just wish that like MySQL had a PAM module for access, things like that from the command line, because it'd be nice to not have 30-odd SQL database passwords. So, yeah. Cool. Thanks. Sure.
Oh, so next month is the Christmas gala, holiday party.
Is that next one?
It's December. So bring some snacks.
What do you guys like?
A little lightning presentation.
Booze.
Who knows?
This is a dry building.
Is it?
Oh, you sure?
It's a bar downstairs.
I don't think so.
Damn.
I don't think so. We've had some employee
What's heroin?
40th hour Fridays that had its stuff supplied. So.
You guys like brisket?
Oh yes.
Okay. I'll bring one.
Ooh.
Wow.
You barbecue yourself?
I smoke it, 12 hours.
Now you see why I don't like when I giggle when you say that. A fellow smoker.
I don't roll it and smoke it.
No, the part where you say you smoke it, I giggle every time he says it. Now you
Yeah,
giggle
well,
why.
as long as you don't say.
Smoke it all that long.
Yes. So.
Okay, never mind, I won't say that.
Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for coming, and we'll end the recorded portion of the program.
Hi, everybody.
The second, I'll let you know.